this is how it should be towed. In the OEM hook point. Not even close. What up, YouTube? I'm coming back at y'all with another one. You see what's right here behind me? You know these 6 gens got problems with them oil pumps. So customer wants to just go ahead, swap it out with a Katech oil pump. And while we're in there, wants to do a cam, wants to do a bunch of extra upgrades. So y'all stay tuned, man. You ain't gonna wanna miss this episode. This thing actually just got dropped off by our guy, Paul, over at PCC Collision over in Tempe. This thing actually fell off the tow truck, and when it was getting picked up from the dealership to be sent over here, because the customer is actually out of the country currently, so he's just getting his car done before he gets in. They replaced the wing, fixed all the back damage. It was actually going up the tow truck and it fell back and hit a Corvette and some other stuff. Yeah, they did an amazing job on getting everything touched up. They powder coated the wheels for the customer. We got a nice care package from GPI, some valve springs, CHE, True and upgrade, Katech oil pump, got the Johnson lifters, trays, all the gaskets, head bolts. We got blower bolts, because you know they're one-time use, so if you didn't replace them, might as well. And then we just got a stage 1 cam. Customer didn't want nothing crazy, but we got the front end wiped down and cleaned up. So we're gonna go ahead and get the wrap put on. All right, we got the front end wrapped up. I split it in 3 different pieces because the front bumper's gotta come off anyways. But in the meantime, while we discharge the AC, get the coolant drained, get the oil drained, get it prepped on the lift, and I'm leaning over it. I don't wanna scratch up on nothing. It is black. It is PPF'd on the front, but you know, just got to be as cautious as possible when you're working on these nice ass hot rods. This thing's a 10-speed auto. He's already got a steering wheel on there. I'm not sure if that was on there when it came in or if Paul and them did that with the carbon fiber wing same time over at PCC, but this is going to be a nice little ZL1. We'll get a startup real quick before I take it all the way apart, just so you guys can see what it sounded like versus when it's done in dyno. Make sure nothing's touching up front up here. Cool. First step is going to be getting this battery unhooked. No more power on the inside. Let's get the car set on the lift. Just like that. Got it up on all 4. So we're going to get all this taken off on the bottom while we're getting the oil drained out. We'll start getting some of the exhaust disconnected. Just do what we have to do on the bottom. That way when we go back up to the top, we can stay working up there and get the heads off and do what we gotta do, get the manifolds off. It's a whole bunch of stuff. We gotta tear this whole engine apart. Let's get this shit. Some fresh oil right there. All right, so we got these few tins. We got a couple of Torx screws. These are already missing on this side. And then we got all these 15s down here to get this plate down. Gives us a lot better access. So we're gonna go ahead and remove that first. Plate coming down. It actually hooks up top here and then slides right out, just like so. All right, so I'm gonna start draining the coolant from the side of the radiator and start getting some of the transmission lines, the plastics. There's 3 7s right there that hold that plastic in place to the fan. We're gonna go ahead, start getting the O2 sensors disconnected, start getting some of this factory exhaust out of the way, all the bracketry. Just gonna go to town. Got all the front bolts out. Got this loose from the front bumper. Got the cover out. You can see the radiator. This is what the customer was concerned about. He didn't want it to start leaking. This is what we were gonna do originally and then ended up doing a cam. We got those 3.7s out to get that out the way so it's not connected to the fan. That way we can pull the fan, radiator, all that up in and out. All right, we got the exhaust down from the manifolds. Got all the O2 sensors disconnected. All right, I got the exhaust all the way down. It's clear now. Let's go ahead and start draining this coolant. You can see the small leak in the radiator right there. Now that we have all of everything down, the radiator is probably cracked. Let's see if we can get this. Perfect, look at that. So we'll let that drain out before we start pulling some of these lines off. It's still gonna leak coolant, but at least we can get most of it out. And now that we got mostly everything disconnected down here that we need to, we can actually lower the car down while this is draining, open up the radiator cap so it gets a better flow, and start taking everything off up top. The reservoir cap off. We're gonna go ahead, get the air filter off, start getting the belts off, start getting all these PCV lines off. Gonna get the lid of the blower off so we can get to the actual blower bolts. But we're gonna just start disassembling everything. Got a lot of the stuff torn out of the way. We got all of the blower bolts out. There's 2 on the back side. See one standing up. Once you want to hook this side, you can pull it over. That way you can get the blower up a little bit. Don't forget about the sensor on the back of the blower. Let's go ahead. Got a lot to do to get these cylinder heads off and get them back to the machine shop today. That way they can swap the springs for us and clean up the cylinder heads. And we'll get the cam out, get the radiator out, everything in between. All right, so we got the spark plugs off, we got all the rocker arms off, we got all the injectors out, the cylinder heads, got that whole plate loose. We're gonna go ahead and get the exhaust manifolds off on both sides. The oil dipstick does come up with this manifold. Don't try to force or pry this thing out. We'll get all 5 of them off on each side. This header. All right, let's start getting these head bolts out. Got both manifolds out the way, got all the grounds off the back of the cylinder heads. Everything clear on this side. This one bolt right here is a specialty bolt. It's either a 1/2 inch or a H12. We got all these 15s. One specialty bolt on this side, the other side is all 15s too. So let's go ahead and get the heads pulled off and back to the machine shop. Got one cylinder head off. I'm gonna go ahead and get all that coolant out of the cylinders and get that gasket off, and then we'll get the driver's side off. All right, to get this cylinder head off, you do have to take this bracket for the supercharger. It holds the tensioner for the supercharger, which is 313, and then it holds one of the idler pulleys. It's a groove idler, and then it's got a 13 in the block, 13 down there, and then 2 15s that go into the cylinder head. All right, we got this cylinder head off too. Don't cut yourself on this damn gasket, because that shit does get stuck. And these edges are very, very, very sharp. 660 spring. We got the water pump out of the way. So we're gonna go ahead now, start tackling the radiator section. Gonna get the front bumper out of our way, get the radiator, condenser, fan assembly, everything pulled out. So we have access to the harmonic balancer. So we can get that pulled, and then we can get the timing cover off, get all that cleaned up, get the factory cam out, put the lockout phaser in there, do everything that we gotta do to get it done. Let's get it. Ahead and got all the timing cover bolts out. Got the 2 tins out of the top of the fan. Gonna go ahead, pop this clip out for the churning cooler line, and then we'll bring the AC machine over here so we can start getting the 1234YF refrigerant pulled out. All right, we got the refrigerant lines hooked up. Let's go ahead, get all this pulled out the system. It's gonna test the Freon. While we're waiting for that, we'll continue to get the front bumper and everything disconnected, start getting the wheel wells and everything out of our way, and then some of the top bolts up here so we can get this pulled off the car. Got the fan assembly pulled out. Gonna go up on the lift. I'm just gonna get the front tires pulled out of my way so I can access all the inner fender liner bolts, to access the bolts that go in the front bumper through here. We gotta get them in through this side. Got both wheels off. All right, we're gonna go ahead and get these Torx out of here. They're T15. 3 of them. Might be a little bit more than that actually. Oh, this one's missing and the tire's already rubbed through this side, so that should be good enough to pull. Oh, we got one more down here. It was ripped, so I didn't see it. The AC machine recovered all the Freon. Turn the machine off. We're gonna go ahead and get it out of our way. And then we'll continue getting the front bumper off. All right, these look like 7s and 8s. And we got 2 7s, is missing one there, but we got 1 and 2 that need to come off as well to get the front bumper completely separated from that front fender. There's a 4th bolt up top. 1, 2, 3, 4. And that will separate the bumper. Same thing on this side. We got the 2 out of the side here. And then we got the ones out of the top here. So it'll pull away just like that. And then we got the 4 out of the top of here. This plug that goes on the driver's side right here, this is the main harness for the front bumper. Once you disconnect this, there should be nothing else attached to the bumper in the front to be able to pull it off. So I'm gonna use both of my hands and get this whole front bumper pulled out of my way. Just like that, we got the front bumper off. So now we're gonna go ahead, get these bars off, get the crash bar out of our way, get all these plastics here and here out the way so we can access the heat exchanger, the condenser, the radiator, and get it all pulled out as one unit together. We got a few 13s in here. Get those pulled off, and then we'll pop this wire harness off the top. That's the piece that broke off when it fell off the tow truck. Well, that's what's left of it at least. Damn. Wow, look at that condenser. Even the radiator is a little tweaked. All the plastics out of the way on both sides, so the radiator is now free. I'm gonna go ahead, make sure everything is disconnected. We got 1 tin connected to that AC line. Actually can stay with it. Just this one stays on the car right here. Let's go ahead. I'm gonna use both of my hands and get this radiator assembly pulled out. The radiator out, gonna go ahead, get the harmonic balancer off, and then get the timing cover off. We did get the radiator, condenser, everything out of our way. Actually, this part of the radiator was broken, so this is probably where it was leaking from. It sits down in there. This part was broken off. The harmonic balancer pulled off. Just like that. We're gonna get that cam sensor wiring out of our way so we can get the timing cover off. We just got a few bolts down here in the oil pan 1 and 2. Get those 2 off, and then the timing cover will come forward. Got both of the lower oil pan bolts out. All right, we got the timing cover off. Gonna go ahead, make sure we don't break none of those plastic clips that hold the wire over. I'm gonna leave this here for now until we get the oil pan down, because it's kind of a pain to unplug this thing. We'll go ahead now, timing set to top dead center, and then we'll get most of the timing components apart. All right, I went ahead and took the nuts off of both of the top of the motor mounts. I pushed the timing cover up. We're actually gonna go up in the air, get the oil pan off. So that way when we take the oil pump off, we can remove all the timing stuff without having to struggle getting the tensioner off or nothing like that. And then we'll start the reassembly process from there. Once we get the new cam in, get the new lifters in. Actually, I'm gonna get the lifters out of the package and the push rods. And I'm gonna go ahead and get them thrown in here and get them soaking up. Those Johnsons. Woo. They all fell over. Get these things soaking in here. Got the lifters soaking. The push rods, we're actually gonna take a measurement once we have the heads back on. That way we have the exact size push rod we need. All right, so we got the Johnson lifter soaking in oil. We got the rear main cover bolts out. We're getting some of the oil pan bolts out. I'm gonna go ahead and take that purple clip, and then I got the 2 purple clips on this side for the oil cooler. Gonna get those pulled out so we can get this oil cooler off and keep getting the pan out. We got 2 15s on the back that do hold the pan to the bell housing, so those have to be removed as well. The oil cooler out of our way, so we're gonna go ahead and get the rest of these 13s, and then we do have a 15 down here that's attached to the oil pan that needs to come off. And then there is a 10 on this one line right here. that needs to come off as well. All right, we got all the bolts out, oil coolers off. Whatever was connected to the oil pan is now disconnected. So we're gonna break this silicone free. It's real tight right now. We got the rear bell housing bolts out. We got the clips out for the PVC vacuum. So now we're gonna get the oil pan down and start disassembling the cam area and getting the new oil pump on. All right, we got the oil pan off. Got it down on the ground right there. Gonna go ahead, get all this silicone and everything cleaned off the motor. Now we have access to the plug on the bottom of the oil pan right here. So we're gonna go ahead and get that connector pulled off, and then we'll get the oil pump pulled off the front of the engine. All right, we got most of the timing stuff out. We're gonna heat those 4 bolts up because they do have Loctite, and then we'll strike them and then get them out. They're T-Torx 40s. We got the tensioner tension. Since it's not making any crazy power or anything like that, we're just gonna keep the factory tensioner in here, and then we'll get all the motor cleaned up, heads to everything before we start assembling. But let's go ahead and get this camshaft pulled out. Remember, before you pull the cam out, you have to pull this plate off and pull the lifter out, the fuel lobe lifter in the back. That has to come out to get the camshaft out. All right, so we're getting this lifter pulled up out of here. If you need a tool, you can put the bolt back in it, whatever, to get some leeway. But we want to pull it out nice and slow so we don't hurt any cam bearings coming out. And screw this all the way in tight. We're going to start slowly pulling it out, little by little. Got to rotate it as it comes out. Just don't want to bang up any of the bearings. See how far the cam's coming forward, so you can never get it out with condenser and radiator and everything in. There's the fuel lobe, and that's the end of the camshaft right there. Nice, beautiful stock LT4 cam. Got everything open. We're gonna go ahead, clean up timing cover surface, both the head gasket surfaces. We're gonna clean up and get our DOD plugs put in, and then we'll get it back up in the air and clean all the oil pan surface underneath, and then we'll jump over to cleaning the oil pan and the timing cover up so we can start our assembly process back together. But there's the complete teardown of the ZL1. So now we rebuild from this point forward. All right, we got all the surfaces cleaned up. I just have to get a razor blade. I couldn't, with my tool, I couldn't get to this because it's so close to this. It's so close to this bracket for the alternator and the tensioner. So I'm gonna just get my razor blade, clean the rest of that up. That area all cleaned up, cover all nice and cleaned up. We're gonna pop that seal out. And then we got the oil pan all nice and clean. Everything's all fresh. So we're gonna go ahead and reassemble this. We got those couple of parts to clean up. That's the pickup tube. There's 2 bolts that hold the pickup tube down to the bottom of the oil pan there, 1 and 2. And then we've got that plate. It's probably more than a baffle to keep oil down in this area, but it's got 3 bolts there that hold that in. And then there's a bunch of 10 millimeters that hold the big windage tray plate in place. Tube in place and bolted down. All right, we got the oil pan fully assembled. We're gonna go ahead and get our oil pump seal put in and the 2 seals here for the top of the oil filter housing. Look at this baby right here. Come with new oil pump bolts, so we'll discard the old oil pump bolts. Start putting the timing together so we can get all these covers and stuff put back on and get this thing done. DOD delete plugs. We got our bolts for our cam plate. All the DOD plugs in. We'll go ahead now, we'll get the cam lubed up and we'll stick that in the motor. That way we can start assembling everything else around it, get the oil pump on, get the timing set perfect, lock all that down with Loctite, start getting the heads on, keep moving. Got the new camshaft going in. It's going real slow. Got it all lubed up with some assembly lube. Nice and lubricated when it goes into those bearings. All right, we're on the last lope. There we go. So we got the lockout installed. We got the dial pin in the cam locked all the way down. We got both pointing at each other. So we'll go ahead, we got some Loctite on the end of the cam bolt. We're gonna start threading this cam in and make sure everything's centered properly. I'm gonna go ahead and grab some just to hold the cam forward so it doesn't pop out. We don't wanna damage that pin on the cam. Timing dead on, let's pull the tensioner out, and then we're gonna rotate the motor over and make sure everything's spinning freely before we torque everything down. Katech oil pump is on, timing is set. I ran the motor over, line right back up with the dot so we know we're right on top dead center. So we're gonna get that bolt torqued down now. All right, the Johnson lifters are going in. Perfect. Get our bolts put in, get them torqued down, and then we'll start getting the head gaskets on. All right, we got both head gaskets on, showing front. So we're gonna go ahead, get the cylinder heads rested on, and we'll start getting the bolts in. We did blow every hole out to get all coolant, oil, whatever is in there. That way you don't risk cracking the block or trying to torque fluid, because fluid will not torque. Let me tell you that right now. But we got all the surfaces nice and clean, so heads are going on. Let's get it. A high pressure fuel pump lifter in place. We're gonna go ahead, get the new gasket and the valley plate, and then we'll get that installed next. All right, so we got the heads on both sides. We're gonna go ahead and get our torque sequence pulled up on all data. We'll get the heads torqued down. That Katech pump looking real good right there. All right, let's go ahead and get the left side torqued down. Remember, it's got that special bolt, so that one only gets torqued to 40 degrees. The rest get torqued to 60, so 9 out of the 10 get torqued to 60 degrees. Just the single one gets that final pass of 40. So we got 59 foot-pounds for the first additional, and then we got 90 degrees and then 40 degrees. You can see there's the torque sequence right there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Every time torquing these LT heads. Just finished both sides. Man, whew. If you know, you know. All right, we're gonna go ahead, get the timing cover put on. I got a nice thin layer of silicone around all the mounting point areas. Got everything nice and cleaned up. Gonna go ahead, get this installed, and then we will go back up in the air and get the oil pan on next. Don't forget your sensor on the oil pump. Make sure you put that red safety tab all the way down, because that'll be a lot of work to get back to it. All right, we got the timing cover on. I'm just gonna wipe the excess silicone on some of the edges. Got a nice thin layer, even all the way around. So we'll go ahead, lower the hood back down, get the car up in the air, get that oil pan sealed up. All right, we got everything down here cleaned up, all the surfaces. So we're just gonna put a little silicone on the 4 corners, 1, 2, 3, and 4. All right, we got a nice even layer all the way around. Let's get this oil pan put on. All right, so we got the oil pan up, got our purple clip in there, silicone all the way around, got all the electrical connectors connected, got the cam sensor connected, got all the bolts on the side for the brackets. All right, got the oil cooler on. We got the car back down on the ground. We finished the oil pan and pretty much everything underneath minus the exhaust system. So what we're gonna go ahead and do now, we're gonna get all the grounds on the back of the cylinder heads, gonna get the harmonic balancer on, gonna go ahead, get the water pump on, and just start assembling the whole front end here before we start putting the radiator, condenser, all the new stuff, because we still do have to take out both auxiliary radiators and get those swapped out for the Avco ones. But I did get the nuts on top of both of the motor mounts. Those are tight. I'm gonna go ahead, get the 2 grounds on this head, the singular ground on that head, and then just get all the wire clamps or whatever that was there. That was a sensor that bolted to the back of the cylinder head on a bracket as well. So all that stuff we're gonna get installed, and then we'll pick back up. Got the sensor bolted up, got both grounds on this head, got the single ground on that head. Gonna go ahead, get our tool, get our harmonic balancer installed and torqued down, and then we're gonna take our push rod measurement. We got our pulley installed. You can see the keyway is lined up perfectly. So we've got our brand new bolt. We're gonna just put a little bit of thread locker on here, and then we're gonna torque it down to spec. Bolt is on, harmonic balancer's torqued down. Before we get the water pump or any of the other front accessories on, I'm gonna go ahead, tie up the steering, get the steering shaft disconnected. We'll get the speed engineering headers out of the box and we'll install them. Got a whole stack of boxes over there. This is all for that car. But we got the headers and the two bottom boxes down there. That stretch to fit belt on. We got the steering wheel locked in place. Let's go ahead and get that steering shaft disconnected. You just have to disconnect the one bolt here and then you can separate the shaft. We got our speed engineering headers right here. We're gonna get them unboxed real quick. Get these thrown up on the car. So we got some O2 extensions. We got some red wires to match the accents on the car. Got some header bolts. And then here is both of the long tube headers right here from Speed Engineering, inch and 7/8. Got both headers. This is gonna be back to the rear exhaust. If I can get the box open. There we go. So yeah, we got the X pipe, got all of our clamps, and then just got the rest of the exhaust to meet up to the factory muffler in the rear. So we got the headers up on both sides. Gonna go ahead, grab the gasket, get the bolts in. We'll get both sides locked down. Got the driver's side locked down. Move over to this side. All right, we got the passenger side all locked down. All the bolts are torqued down. Throw the water pump on there. Our new gaskets. New gaskets on. Don't forget your clips. We got one there, and we got one on the oil cooler line. Water pump is on. Got one of the brackets on. Let's go ahead and get the pulleys on there. Both of the pulleys are on. Let's get this sub harness attached to the cylinder head here. Harness is on. Serpentine belt is on. Next step, let's get these injectors in. We'll go ahead, clean up all the holes, blow them out with air to make sure there's no debris or anything. And then we'll get all the new seals that we picked up from the dealership on the injectors. Just a lot of gunk and stuff like that. So we're gonna get the tips of these cleaned off and we'll get the new seals on them. The old seals were stuck in the cylinder heads and we don't want to have any issues or have to pull the supercharger for something very simple. So got the seals there, let's get them on. The holes blown out. We got the new seals on the injectors and we got some Loctite on the bolts that hold the injectors to the cylinder head. So we'll go ahead, put a flashlight down in there and make sure that there was no debris. So we'll lock that down into place. Got all new seals, everything cleaned up. We got Loctite on the bolts. Go ahead and get that down in there evenly. And we'll get it all tight down and torque to spec. All right, we got all our fuel lines assembled. We got Loctite on every single joint. That way it seals the threads off. We have no fuel leaks or anything under the blower. And then again, all these are torqued down to spec. We got both connectors and the high pressure fuel pump and the fuel pressure sensor all plugged up. I'm gonna go ahead and box all the rest of the parts. That way the catch can, we can install the piece on the valley cover that we need before the blower goes on. And then the Cortez expansion tank, we got to make sure we run all the hoses how they're supposed to be. And then we got the two auxiliary radiators that we're going to go ahead and install since the front end's apart. And a lot of stuff is out of the way. Oh, look at all these goodies. Avco, cold case, Rotofab, Quartz Performance. We got us a new condenser. Let's get to unboxing. All right, we got our Avco triple attack heat exchanger. We got one. And then here's the other two little auxiliary ones that sit off on the front here. And then we got our cold case radiator. This will replace the factory radiator because his was damaged. We got our Rotofab cold air intake. It's the big gulp for the ZL1. We got a Mighty Mouse catch can. Looks like radiator mount. And then we got a Cortez Performance expansion tank. Radiator mount as well, so I got to make sure those two don't run into each other. And then last but not least, we got the CHE bushings. We're going to work on getting the auxiliary coolers out and getting the new ones installed. A bird's nest under here. We went ahead and removed both of the plastic shrouds, so we're going to get this heat exchanger out of this bracket here and get both of these upper lines disconnected, and we'll get the new ones slid in. Take the 3 bolts, 1, 2 to the subframe there, and then the third one is up top. All right, we got it in the bracket. Let's go ahead and get it thrown back on the car. Just like that. we'll go ahead and get the 2 plastic shrouds, and then we're gonna knock out the other side just so you guys seen how that went. We'll get the other side apart and do the same thing. All the plastic ducting is back on. Let's jump over to this one. Got the second auxiliary cooler in place, got all the bracketry and everything locked in. Now we're gonna swap new condenser, new radiator, old condenser. We're gonna swap all the lines and everything over to this, get this fully assembled. The cold case radiator fully assembled. Swapped all the hoses over, all the bracketry for the heat exchanger, the new condenser and everything attached. So let's go ahead and get it thrown up in the car. We got the new radiator, new condenser in. We got some of the lines on. We're gonna go ahead and knock out all the coolant lines, and then we're gonna start installing the new heat exchanger. The heat exchanger in, get in the cords, expansion tank mounted. I already got one of the lines made. They have this nice heat shrink. This line goes from the bottom straight to the pump, and then we just have to remake this one line that goes up to the blower. It actually deletes out this hard line here, the one that ran across the front of the fan there and went over to the bottom side. Well, both of the inlet and outlet are on this side, so that hose stays factory. This comes with a new hose, and then it bridges to jump it over. It bridges from here, this hose here, and then it's gonna go straight over to the blower. So we'll get that connected next. Let's get this finished up. Okay, so to mount this cords expansion tank for the supercharger coolant, we actually have to get a relocation bracket where the Mighty Mouse catch can will mount over on that side. All right, we got the front end pretty much complete. I'm gonna jump back over to the engine now. I'm gonna get all the spark plugs and wires on. All right, spark plugs showed up. We got our oil filter, got the Racing R filter, and then we got some 530 Dexos approved. That's what this car calls for, full synthetic. So let's get it installed. Got the new NGK 6510s installed on both sides. Let's go ahead and get the Speed Engineering wires thrown on. All right, we got all the spark plug wires on. Let's go ahead, get the True and upgrade installed so we can get the rockers on, get the valve covers on, and hook up the wires to the coil pack. Got my trusty tool. Got to do all 16 rockers. See all those needle bearings that just fell out? This is exactly why we delete those bearings out of here. All the bearings are pushed out. So we're getting the new CHE bushings installed. We're gonna go ahead and put in all 16 rockers, and then we're gonna get them put on the vehicle. Got the CHE upgrades on. Let's torque them down. Then we'll get both valve covers on, get that supercharger on. All right, we got the dipstick in. We got both valve covers on and tightened down. All the coil packs are on. So we'll go ahead, gotta hook this side up here. 1, 2, you wanna hear that click. 3, number 4. All right, let's get the supercharger put on, and then we'll get all the coil packs hooked up. All right, we got the supercharger on, we got the covers on, we got the coolant reservoir in. We just need to put the 10mm nut on there. All right, so we're back up under the car. We got the O2 sensors in place, got the extension on. We just got to put some zip ties on it, but we're gonna run the rest of the exhaust back. I cut it here so we can get it out because it's one long piece all the way to the back. So we're gonna get these 13s out of this bracket here, and then we're gonna start piecing together the front exhaust. And as we make our way back, we're gonna have to make our cut somewhere along here-ish, but I wait till I get all the exhaust because you see it's dropped down here. So we'll start building from the front and make our way to the casket muffler in the back. All right, we got our first section up. We're actually gonna have to cut the exhaust. So we'll come back here a little further. We'll trim it down right at the crease here, and then we'll continue to make our way back. All right, we got the X pipe in. We got the axle back in. So we're about where we need to be on this side. This side's a little long. So we're gonna loosen these up, take them out of the rubbers, and then we're gonna trim this side down and then slip the slip joints over. All right, we got the full exhaust system hooked up. X pipe all the way back to the muffler. All the way through, we got everything out of the way All the harness, nothing touching the headers. And the rear O2 sensors are deleted. This one here is for an AFR, but we don't have an AFR sensor, so we're just gonna go ahead and tighten that one down. All right, so we got the car back down. We got the RotoFab cold air intake installed. Got all the clamps aesthetically pleasing. Got everything zip tied out the way. We did fix this line. Tees in right here next to the radiator. We got this full of coolant. That's why it was dripping out, because you have to, per instructions, you gotta add coolant in this line until it starts coming out of here before you hook it all up to the system. So, all right, so we'll go ahead and put some oil in it and we'll attempt to fire this thing up. All right, we got oil added in the motor. We're at level. We're actually gonna use this starter relay to run the motor over. Since it's a brand new oil pump, we want to get everything primed up before we attempt to fire it up. So let's go ahead, connect the battery in the trunk. So we're gonna go ahead, run the starter over. Got the jumper box on here because the battery's a little low. Just gonna get some oil pumping through the new oil pump and all through the new lifters and everything. We'll check the oil level and then we'll fire it up. So let's go ahead, run this over. We got the steering shaft fully connected. Got Loctite on both of the bolts there. Let's go ahead and attempt to fire this thing up. All right. Got good oil pressure. Got no leaks underneath. That's all just old stuff that was already there. Nice and quiet. It's alive. Let's listen to this chop. Let's move these boxes out of our way. Right, we're getting all our coolant filled up. We got the Cords expansion tank full. Got our Matco vacuum puller. You'll see it'll start sucking down all the hoses as it pulls vacuum out. See the upper hose. So we'll let it sit for about 5 minutes. Once it stops down here under 25, 5 to 10 minutes, make sure that it's not losing vacuum, so we ensure we have no leaks anywhere on the motor. All right, we're holding vacuum right under 25, so we'll check back in a few minutes. As long as it stays where it's at and it's not retracting back, then that ensures that we are leak free of the system. We got the AC machine hooked up, going and vacuuming down the system. Takes 544 kg. All right, we're gonna go ahead. It's gonna vacuum the system down again. All right, charging up the system now. These newer machines, they take forever. All right, went ahead, we got all the TCM data read successfully. So we'll go ahead, replace the TCM. A few plastic pieces in from the dealer that were missing. This goes up and protects the transmission cooler. So a few things that we need to put on. These are all the bolts for underneath, and then it's a bunch of clips and all that were missing in the front end. So we'll get all this stuff installed and then pick up the TCM today from Pinky's Tune, get that installed on the car, and we'll get it over to the dyno. So this is the piece that was missing here. You can see the ambient temp sensor plugs in there, and then the clips actually go into this bracket. All right, got all the clips into place. We got one of the upper catch can lines made. Nice, simple. We're gonna zip tie it over out of the way. And then the second one, we're actually gonna run down along, follow the AC line along with these cooler lines, and it's gonna dish back up under that way. We got one line running this way, down, goes down and around, and it's actually gonna connect up to the other hose right here underneath the air box. Right, got it all connected. Got the TCM back, it's unlocked, ready to take a transmission tune. Let's go ahead and get this thing thrown in. Just like that. Got the locking tab locked down. Let's go ahead, grab the front bumper, get that thing thrown on. All right, get it on. Front bumper is on. Let's go up in the air. We'll start getting all the bolts in the inner side of the fenders on both sides, and then we'll start getting all the plastic trim, make sure everything underneath's lining up. And then we got the belly panel over there. We got all the bumpers connected. We got all the under trays on, both front wheels on. We're gonna go ahead, take off the rear wheels, put on these welds. We got the welds on. Gonna air them up, lower the car down, and then finish up the TCM install. This thing's looking good though. One step closer. It's looking good. Man. TCM replacement complete. All right, it read the transmission control module. Let's head into the dyno. See, you got the wheels on this thing. Let me put my light on. Got the welds. We got some fresh tires on it because the other tires were shot. See, these are fresh, ready to go. Sonoran Desert Towing for the win. They take care of all of our vehicles, but we'll go ahead, hit the dyno tomorrow and see what kind of power this thing puts down.